I think this is like amazing what you got going on. Your ideas, what you're bringing to the table here, exposure, you know what I mean? Like collective learning, like it's a really great like environment, and this I think can grow very large, and I think it's like probably going to be a very like large initiative that you're starting right now.
Yeah.
This is just literally the tip, like you said, and the tip is very exciting at this point. I feel.
It's all about the experience. It has nothing to do with the points, you know, except for those of you who haven't played the game yet, it is all about the points, okay? And nothing to do with the experience. And so the bigness, because life is not clear and concise, right? It could have been about the points, it may not have been about the points. Life may be about money, life may not be about money. Kids, cars, homes, whatever, right? So that's basically what this experience is all about. And depending on the level that we play Red Black in, it actually is used as a self-reflection, right? As I asked Team A, why did you choose A the first time, right? Is that how they play life? And since they made that choice, they know that they harmed the other side. How does it feel?
So I kind of later reflected on that, and I said, okay, I mean, they were kind of nice to us, so
Right.
maybe I want to take a bit more risk. I want to risk and see if I can offer them peace, and you know, and if we can put this together. So later on, I realized that. But when I was first playing it, I was playing it for winning,
Yeah,
for the points.
yeah,
But then later on, I changed it.
yeah.
So we didn't even do that. We just
No,
right off the bat just said, you know, we're just gonna go nice right off the bat. Right? That's what we did.
So let me ask you about this. What were you looking to get out of choosing black? Were you looking to get, you know, the favors of other people? Oh, look at us, we're only choosing black? Like, what was that position about?
We're just kind of going with, this is who we are.
This is who we are.
And I appreciate that. And I think,
What we want to do business.
Yeah, because you asked the question which I think helps us to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everybody kind of just realized that we were more reflective of ourselves rather than, you know, and then.
part of my role as a facilitator during these games is in that moment. And remember, right, I was speeding things up as things were going on. Like, come on, make your choice or I'm gonna make it for you, right? Because that's what life does to us. It puts us in stressful situations where we make these spontaneous things. Your choices on those spontaneous answers generally shows you how you will behave under stress. So I think the results aren't horrible, right? I think they're quite positive with this group. Some, if they, right, I mean, we get that we're always that Russia, US, who's gonna push the bomb first, and if one pushes, they're all gonna push, right? Well, I don't know, none of us know, right? But the reality is that in that stressful moment, how do we react? So that's what this game is all about. Just about allowing you guys to have an opportunity and reflect on your choices, on how you play life. Because it is about life. Game or not, this was about life. It's reflected 100% on each and every one of you as an individual. It actually did. Congratulations on coming even. I think that's a positive. My personal belief is that's a positive.
I thought, was it,
Oh, that's funny.
it's, because of my combat training, I find that it's push and pull, push and pull. Sometimes you have to take that push to get the pull you need to get into a better position.
The nice thing is today, no one died.
Yeah.
Right? So you know how that went. Right? And, I mean, isn't that what you do when you were doing that? Isn't that what life is all about?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody died today.
I really realize like how influenced I can be. Like
Yeah.
I can be very influential myself, but I can also be very influenced by other factors.
Right.
So I really, questioning and,
Yeah, we all change our minds.
yeah.
Kevin?
For myself, I do a lot of negotiating, so I think a lot about like game theory, and game theory is kind of like the thing where you assume the opposite side. You have to assume that they're very intelligent, whether or not they act intelligent, whether or not they appear it, but deep down they actually are, and you're making an educated choice based on what they see in their perspectives. The other side of it is you also assume that the opposite side is always wanting to win. They have a set of rules. It's a game, no outcomes. Why not win? Because it makes you feel good when you're winning over the opposite team. So when you're starting to think about that and looking through assumptions of the other party and thinking where they're coming from and where they're going, you got sort of like this imagination of who you're against. When the reality is, it was a bunch of people who cared about the other side and just wanted a nice, even, level outcome. But on our side, it was kind of like an intense negotiation, trying to get what was best for us. And even while we were going through, we were thinking, well, what if we were a little bit higher, so at the end we could break even to make sure that the opposite side doesn't get greedy by us at least maintaining that by having a little bit more, so we can even it out at the end. But in the end, we were doing more than we actually needed to try and keep ourselves safe.
Our resident artist.
Take that one just because. Real talk?
Sure.
Where's your card? Let's see your card.
I didn't bring one.
You know what?
You cannot find me. You cannot find me. Because I'm
Everybody
gonna run
should
for mayor.
RSVP.
I'm gonna run for mayor, so you'll have. There you go. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Don't forget, you guys can keep connected with Meetup or the Facebook group.
Please, I will.
Right, we're gonna keep, make sure everybody's.
Sorry about this, and
No
I
worries.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
All right, take care, Don. We preface this by saying, this guy's quite amazing. Some of you may or may not have seen this, but basically this guy posted this video and an explanation of how people behave in groups. And it's his discussion of what's happening here is very interesting.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out, you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
All right. Who's seen this before? Anybody seen this before?
That video specifically, or should I?
Well, this is his original video. And he does a TED Talk as well, too. He uses the video in a TED Talk. Yeah. In my world, we often say that the leader isn't the first person. The leader is the person who comes in second and supports the first person. What do you guys think makes, well, what's this all about? Cookies and community, right? So let's answer some questions. What do you guys think are the keystones of community? Words. Any words that come to mind?
Helping people.
People, so what would that be in a word?
Helping.
Cooperation?
Cooperation.
Okay.
Relationships first, getting to know the other people.
Okay.
I think emotional bonds, not just intellectual.
Would I be safe to say that
Emotionally connected.
empathy would
Yeah,
be a
and
word?
also just an ability to look at someone
And bonds, and that's hard, yeah. So my word is empathy, your word is bonding. I think they have similar meanings, but they can be different, absolutely. I'm not gonna-
Accountability.
Accountability, okay,
Integrity.
yeah.
Usually people forming a community have a lot of stuff in common together.
Okay.
Now, there might be some differences, but usually a
So-
community has some sort of goal or
So
purpose.
could I say common
A niche
belief?
market.
I mean, we can use belief,
Yeah.
it's a commonality,
Yeah.
right?
Commonality.
Yeah, commonality.
Anything else?
I don't think it's really just a belief though, because usually you want to do something, right? Usually there's some.
What's that? There's a
goal.
word for that.
A common goal.
Okay,
Commitment.
what was the word that I used over there? Victoria, what was that word I used?
Progressive? What did
Okay.
you say?
You're the one that said progressive, I said intention.
Intentional?
Right, so
I don't know.
you have a goal, you have an
I'm
intention
on the spot.
to achieve that goal.
Action oriented.
But I'll say goal, I'll say intention,
I feel like patience. is-
action, patience.
Some people are impatient.
I would say that
Right.
tolerance and inclusivity are important values in my opinion.
Yeah, tolerance, absolutely, and inclusive.
Every community needs Kevin's.
Yeah.
What about resourcefulness?
Resourceful,
Yeah.
you absolutely want that in a community, yes.
Maybe different.
Isn't that
Maybe
pivotal?
with different towns.
Diversity.
Diversity?
Honesty, I would say, but also the ability to.
Well, what does honesty lead to? Honesty, well, there's integrity, but there's also trust.
Trust.
Okay, so I'll leave it at this for now. There's a lot of words that we know. We know these words. We know, right? It's that 6-year-old child going to his 7-year-old friend with that loaf of bread in an impoverished country, saying, "Here," right? They're not. We trust each other. We're not walking up to somebody and they're going to steal our bread because we're offering them a bite, right? These are all very important keystones of community. You know, one of the keystones also is a word that's being used more and more, and that is called non-aggression, an agreement to non-aggression, right? Which is basic, and that's the trust. I trust that somebody's not going to harm me intentionally.
Excuse me, Kevin.
Yes,
You forgot something very important.
tell me about it.
Proximity.
Proximity? How can we deal with proximity when physicality is an issue?
Well, proximity is when you and someone else share the same geographic location, for one thing.
Or communication
And a lot
channel?
A lot of the common thing, you use the same services, the same,
Yeah,
the same buildings, the same space.
sure,
So
sure.
it's really proximity.
Sure, we can say proximity because I think that most people now see this not just as geographically
Well, most
constrained.
communities are, I mean, even historically.
Lisa,
But we have online communities right
True,
now, and so
true.
it's like, again, that movement,
yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
movement, or
Yeah,
you could be all around the world,
Right.
but you've got the same type of communication for
but the
everybody.
problem is when you have a good, right? And our lives often revolve around goods, the materials for our buildings, the food on our plate, right? Those things generally tend to bring people to a geographically relevant proximity, right? And then you have the things that grow up around that. When he talks about what was happening in Europe, in the Ukraine and Poland, right? That also happened here too in Canada, right? Anybody have any idea why English was our first language and is now partnered with Francais, right? Why is English our primary language here? Was it really about the war? That's the question. That's a question that a lot of historians will ask and will debate at length. Here's what I know in my community, and I also know that in Winnipeg here as well. When they went to markets, there was the Ukrainian, the Polish, the Scots, and nobody understands them. The Jewish, the Hebrew, right? We had Middle Eastern, we had Asians over here, right? We had the Spaniards, the west of the old world, and how could they do business? So they started using a common language. And yes, the British were here and had established the colonies and said, well, why not English? But if they sorry, Sarah, 1 second. If they both spoke Ukrainian, they would do business in Ukrainian. If they both spoke German, it's that commonality. But English has just become that common language that we use to do business. Sarah?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I suppose that's one explanation, which is based, I'm a Jewish person.
Sure.
Based on my knowledge of the history, reading the shells and how people did commerce. The women did the trading, and they knew like 6 languages each.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a common language, but they still managed it.
Correct. And that's true, right? That is a truth, absolutely. Is that often you had a member of a family who spoke a language that would work at the market that you were going to attend. And as you say, with the Yiddish women, I mean, it's like, okay, come along.
They knew all the languages. I mean,
That's right.
their husbands were studying Hebrew and
Absolutely.
Torah all the time.
That's right.
They were the ones that went out and did work.
That's right.
The world did work.
Yes.
So was it just the growth of the Western world that really propelled that?
Yeah, it could have been any, at the end of the day, it could have been any language, right? It didn't have to be English, it just became, okay, I mean, I'm not gonna get into that too, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is an awesome colonize the world opportunity, right? Let's teach everybody English and let's all have them use US American dollars,
Yeah.
right?
And if you think about it, like North America had an unreal amount of cultures and people speaking languages. So it's like, how can everybody really?
But they did, right? North America, they had all these little trade routes between the
True, but then everybody became closer together rather than farther.
And the crazy thing about North America is even the indigenous population who did not have a North American common language somehow were able to do business with each other because they found a common
They had a
language.
network.
They had a network.
Before English, before the colonists came for any of that. They had also, if you just go to the Manitoba Museum,
Yeah.
you can see the pictures of that.
And that's North America. That also happened in Europe, pre-history, right? It definitely happened there as well, too. Just to quickly go through our community here. I put my name up as community builder, right? But I serve a lot of different roles. I serve whoever I'm having a conversation with, depending on what their needs and wants are. I'm going to add that I also have some skills as a, okay, let's say, as a renovator, a home renovator. Sheila, any other skills you have other than
that?
professional hugger, advertising specialist, and water specialist?
Yeah, I'm into the holistic arts, so I have lots of experience treating clients with holistic arts. First and foremost, I'm a mom to the 4 greatest kids in the world.
So that means you can cook.
What's that?
That means you cook.
Oh yeah, I cook, I clean, I work,
I want to get to know you better.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin, you have here your physical
Physical branding.
branding.
So logos on everything.
Right.
On top of it, I've been told I'm an incredible copywriter where I can write messages in a way that the majority of people can understand them. On top of it, I love creating and organizing community events, getting people together, facilitating connections amongst each other, trying to make the world better tomorrow. And then I'm writing a book with a bunch of other business owners that I got together to help educate people too. So I love education.
Mark, you've written down your what you do.
My profession.
Information in what?
Technology.
Mark, would you be willing to share with the group here about Power IT?
Well, the truth is that's not my main gig anymore.
Okay, but let them know what it
There's a
was.
room of freelancers, I'm not one anymore.
Right.
I joined one of the biggest employers in town, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
And that's cool. So what Mark used to do, he used to be part of an organization called Power IT,
I'm still part of it on the side.
and you are still a part of
And
it.
the
but-
transition to other person team.
Right.
I believe.
And basically, it was a workers' cooperative.
Yeah.
And I would say successful.
I don't know. Actually, one of the biggest things we ever failed to do was kind of scale beyond me.
Yes, agreed.
Like I didn't really have
That's a
business-
challenge, though.
I didn't have the business skills to be into hiring a delegate.
Yeah.
Except I kind of learned that at the very end after I was already walking away.
Yeah. And that's tough, because a lot of times we get into things.
A lot of small businesses get stuck in that. rut.
Yeah.
The owner operator does almost everything and they can never scale the business.
Yeah.
When they're working on executive level, you've got people in the middle working on management level, and you've got people doing the groundwork.
There's in any organization, even in cooperatives, there is a certain trust, that we do have to place in certain people, but all our people, right? Whether it's management, labor, the labor and the grunt workers front line, they have to trust that management is making good decisions, right? And they also have to trust that the CEO is not going to screw them when it comes to who's getting paid and who's not getting paid or how much. I believe, I can't remember, somebody please tell me on the internets, at the bottom of the video, which country it is. One of the countries, it's either Vietnam or Taiwan, they have a law that states that top executive cannot make more than 7 times the lowest earner. They can't make 13 times, they can't make 130 times.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, Lorraine, you be next. You say that you're a writer and a social media creep. I don't see it.
Well, I'm a first aid instructor, first responder, and I'm a single parent, so that kind of sums it up right there. I wear a bazillion hats just doing that.
Well, having a
Motivator,
child,
wheelchair.
you are the first responder, but you're definitely going to be handy when the next work group takes us out into the bush and gets us all duck in barbed wire.
Yes.
All right.
Find it.
Who's coming to the next one?
I can roll it.
Jason, personal trainer, second degree, jujitsu. Which dojo?
CCSA. I started Academy 64, went to CCSA.
Cool.
Under Silvio Barron.
Nice, nice. Did you ever do any Aikido?
No,
No?
Muay Thai kickboxing as well.
Okay. Cool. So what else do we know about your abilities and skills?
I'm a teacher.
Teacher? What?
I'm actually a certified instructor in jiu-jitsu.
Okay, so, and teaching is a skill, not necessarily a knowledge base. Right. All right, who's next? Colin, tell us about yourself. Well, web marketing and DJ. Yeah, creative and A-type personality, and what else do we know about
A-type.
Jason? He likes to wear salmon. Okay.
Yeah, so I have a company, I don't know what else to tell you, what we do. I guess there's a lot to it. There's finding clients, figuring out what they might want, what would work for them, giving them ideas. So I guess there's a lot of, what do you call that, a lot of consulting that happens.
Conversation, communication?
A lot of conversation, figuring things out, figuring what's going to work best, what's the best price, can we get it for better prices, shopping around for clients.
Black.
Yeah. there's all kinds of stuff that happens there, and then organizing the teams, organizing the work.
Victoria, you're next on this Price is Right show. Growth coach, mediator, network marketeer,
Yeah, can I spell that?
marketer.
Like specifically, I just realized that I'm really good at helping people have more confidence in themselves. So more specifically, I'm like a perspective taking assertiveness coach. So I feel like a lot of people pull themselves back from taking, those next steps, whatever it is, even like standing up to my own son, who's 16. It's very difficult as a parent to just assert yourself in those situations when they're such a way. So to actually be able to just have everything kind of well-rounded and wholesome and you know what I mean?
So you're a rule keeper?
Not really, I like to advocate for people. Like more of a supporter. I'm like a professional supporter. You know what I mean?
But just out of curiosity, and it's not a right or wrong answer by any means, as a growth coach, are you certified?
I have a conflict resolution degree.
Okay.
I'm a trained professional coach from Adler International.
Okay.
And I'm a designated mediator.
Cool.
So
You're the mediator.
qualified.
Excellent, good for you.
Yeah.
Well done.
So
Overeducated.
yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
It'll come in handy. It will come in
But
handy.
honestly, it's set me on a great life trajectory.
Absolutely.
And it's taught me a lot because I learned nothing in my young years. So.
Don.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Don's gone. Don is a security and home automation personnel. He's an ADT dealer. Oh, cool.
But he's also the next
Lisa, instructor facilitator of what specifically, Lisa?
A lot of things. I'm trained as a teacher, but I prefer the facilitation kind of aspect of that rather than really standing up to drill and kill kind of thing. So I'm very into personal relationships, one-on-one. I really excel at that and getting to know people and finding their passions and their strengths and building on those.
Good skill to have as an instructor. Get
Yeah.
to know who you're instructing and who you're facilitating for.
Yeah, and I like to, again, kind of facilitate, help facilitate for people who are not able to facilitate, not able to, what's what I want, advocate for themselves in whatever situations. I've had sick parents for a number of years now, so I've learned a lot about advocating for other people and working within systems that are not perfect and
What other skills do
special
you
ed
have?
teacher as well. Pardon?
What other skills do you have?
I can arrange flowers.
Yes, you can. What other skills do you have?
I'm great with animals.
Cool. All right. Please help me with your name. Preetham.
Yeah.
Okay. Preetham, digital exhibition designer. Oh, cool. Trading.
Yeah, it's two different things. So,
Tell us about those.
so the first one is the exhibition designer. The human rights museum networks. So one of my main jobs is like there are different kinds of human rights stories, different kinds of genocides that has happened in the past, whether it's the Vietnam genocide, whether it's indigenous history, or whether it's in the Holocaust. So my job is mostly to tell these stories in an engaging way using different kinds of technology, so that people, when they come to the museum, they're engaged by using the technology, but at the same time learning history. Canadian history, special attention to Canadian history because it's Canadian museum, but also like different kinds of human rights stories around the world. So I'm a technical person. I did engineering, and so I like to do some analysis and technical, nerdy, geeky stuff.
Do you cook?
Yes, I do cook.
What's your specialty?
My cooking is pretty much well, not anything.
Okay.
Is that related to?
Ah, yes it is. You bet it is.
Yeah.
We want to know you.
Okay, when I cook, I'm very particular about what I eat. So I do buy a lot of vegetables and stuff. When I'm buying a chicken, I'm very particular about the chicken. It has to be free-range chicken that is raised well. Roast fish as well. I don't eat too much red meat, but occasionally I do. But most of the time I'll cook, and I always.
So when you bring food, people want to eat it. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, if I have enough, yeah.
Oh, then you're willing to share. Okay. Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, journalist, and what else do you have? Theater.
Theater artist.
Right, and public educator.
So, want me to elaborate on any of those, or?
You can. I think those are great. So, but journalist in what specifically?
Well, my preferred media would be like audio or audiovisual.
Okay.
I just prefer to talk than to write.
Right.
I have written, I consider myself a freelance journalist, emerging freelance journalist, I'm sure, because, I haven't like meted with some big network. But on the other hand, I've actually done some work with just like local publications. Like, for example, I worked for the University of Winnipeg paper as a reporter for about 6 weeks. And I just discovered that I didn't really like that lifestyle, to go out with tons of stories in a week and write tons of words, and I don't like writing enough. And I was always good at writing. And people are always telling me, like, you're such a great writer, but I love to talk. I don't love to write. And I don't like to be alone. I don't like to sit in front of a computer by myself, and I don't have things to say, reading books, and I don't like that. I make a terrible like academic or scholar, even though my family always thought I should be that, because my dad was very, let's just say, he was a very introverted lawyer. So he had a certain vision for me. And like my favorite thing in journalism is to just interview people about whatever. I've done quite a bit of that for CKUW.
You were on
a bunch of that. And as far as the audiovisual stuff, I haven't done as
Mike
much.
Furnish then?
Sorry?
You know Mike Furnish then? Mike Furnish?
No. I work with Mike Welsh. Michael Welsh. He's the main one I work with at CBANG. But I've also managed to get 5 opinion pieces published in CBC on their website. So those were written pieces, and they paid very well. But for me, it's like I can't, as a writer or as a creator of content, I used to want to be a content creator, but then I was in the position where I had to do that for a job, and I didn't enjoy it. It was just too much content, shoveling in too much stuff too quickly, too much. I like to think about things. Yeah, too much information, exactly. So like my favorite kinds of activities are like there's lots of people around and we're talking and visiting, and like I could do an impromptu speech like you would believe. Like give me a topic, give me a few minutes, and I'm up there. And I was in Toastmasters for a year. I quit after a year because I thought actually it was bad. Sort of rage quit. Because I thought I deserved to go of some kind because my impromptu was so good, and this is my first year in Toastmasters. And it's just like I love the energy of groups of people.
that's probably why I went into theater as well. Because again,
That's
that,
good feedback in theater. It's
Yeah.
immediate.
I don't wanna force the world to be better, it's not like that. It's more like, I want to explore it on the level, us all on the same level, and us having a better time. I believe in the power of catharsis, very powerful. You really need to just feel and release pain. Sometimes I think we should have like, once a year, we should have just, I would call it like hugging day. And we're all just sort of hug each other.
Just have the door window.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yes. I can keep going. but-
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, awesome. Monique, what's it like being retired?
Well, I think I've probably been retired since I was born.
So what skill sets does Monique have? What does Monique, what is, when somebody needs something that Monique is good at, what are they coming to you for?
Advice, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you knit?
No,
No? Do you mow lawns?
not if I can help it.
Do you know how to find someone to mow a lawn?
No, I just let it grow until, I don't know. Somebody
city
comes
comes
and
and
says- My son will eventually. Yeah. I'd like to have it paved, but it's too expensive.
Okay, so.
I know such guys.
Anybody wants to know about Monique? Go see Sarah. All right, thank you, Sarah. That's our journalistic work. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to our next video. Oh, I'm sorry, holy, oh, your name's right over there. What do you mean it's all? Look at that blank space.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself.
My name is Jonathan Trapp. I work in manufacturing. I make sonotubes.
What is that?
Sonotubes?
What are those?
Sonotube tubes and saunas.
Construction tubes, like the ones you put cement in.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, I do that full time. It's hard work, long hours, real pay. And then I have a side business where I work in direct sales, where I help people with services.
Okay, good. Everybody, at the end of this, I want you to surround John and learn more about him. Our next video, which is about community building.
So the do-it-yourself movement is huge right now. From home improvement to fashion, one look at Pinterest and you'll see that this trend is here to stay. DIY is defined as the method of building, repairing, or modifying something without the direct aid of experts or professionals. But what if we took this concept and we applied it to our communities? What would that look like? I moved to Bismarck from Grand Forks 5 years ago and learned immediately that you will find what you're looking for. I remember calling a friend in Denver and complaining that there wasn't curbside recycling, they didn't have a food co-op. I thought the art and music scene was lacking a little bit. And she said, well, Heidi, if anybody's gonna change it, it's gonna be you. And that sounded exhausting to me, right? That sounded like a lot of work. But what I realized is I was finding exactly what I was looking for. Instead of looking for the right with this new community, I was looking for all of the wrong. Then something shifted. I started dreaming a little bit. I met some incredible people and started talking to them and found that they shared a similar vision. I found my tribe and we got to work. You see, DIY isn't necessarily about doing it yourself, but it's about finding those people who can offer some skills or expertise and help you along the way. So I just had to hold the vision and trust the process. I'd always been pretty health conscious and loved supporting my local food co-op here in Grand Forks as much as possible. I knew the positive impact that it could have on the local economy, the small farmers in the region, and the health of my family as a whole. So I set out with this awesome group of people from Bismarck to create a food co-op there. Had I ever started a food co-op before? Absolutely not. Had I ever started any business before? No. Did I know how I was going to go about working with these people to make it a reality? No, I really didn't. But that didn't matter, you see, because I showed up. I showed up to do the work, and I found these incredible people to do it with me, and that's all that mattered. The first lesson I learned in this process was to trust yourself. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks changed the course of history with one word: no. Her action was spontaneous and not premeditated, and she later remarked, "When I made that decision that day, I knew I had the strength of my ancestors behind me." That sentence gives me chills. What if more of us looked at life that way? With the powerful, grounded conviction that we have the strength of our ancestors with us, of all of the groundwork that has already been laid out before us, and to trust that a path will unfold. Better yet, what if we worked so diligently towards something better that would benefit future generations, leaving things a little bit better than we found them? Trusting that process was a necessary step to making this vision a reality. The second lesson I learned in this process was to do it yourself. Not alone, of course, but not waiting for a perfect set of circumstances to act and to do something. To stop wishing and to start doing. Jason Roberts is an IT consultant and bike advocate living in the historic neighborhood of Oak Cliff, Dallas. He wanted to take a more active approach to revitalizing his neighborhood, and in 2010, Jason started the Build a Better Block project. He envisioned the transformation of a 4-block center in downtown Dallas, using very little money, zero permanent infrastructure, and lots of creativity. They created temporary awnings, bike lanes, cafe tables, and made medians out of potted plants. They recruited local artists and food vendors to sell their goods inside and outside of abandoned storefronts. Knowing that the project could easily be shut down due to city regulations, they went rogue and threw caution to the wind. He said, "We broke as many laws as possible. We were ready to go to jail for this." And no one really questions you when you put on an orange construction vest. I love it. You see, the beauty of the Better Block project was that it altered the perception of what people thought was actually possible in that community. It showed them what could be changed through some creativity and determination. With the food co-op, we had a very limited marketing budget. We needed to reach a lot of people in a very short period of time. So we knew we had to be creative. As you can see there, that's one of our tomato bombs, and it's incredible what you can accomplish with some pickle buckets, some soil donated from a local farm, and tomatoes donated from a local nursery. We placed a sign within each tomato bomb that read, "Hi, I'm a tomato plant. You may see some of my siblings around town. We're here to spread the word about a local food co-op taking root in our community. If you see me, please water me, care for me, and watch me grow. And when my tomatoes are ready, enjoy them." We place them strategically around town at local businesses, popular restaurants, outside of TV stations, the governor's mansion, and downtown where we had extensive foot traffic. And suddenly, the buzz had been created. We started receiving calls from the local media, memberships started rolling in, and people were posting pictures online of these tomato bombs that they had found outside the door, or of their doors. But ultimately, this was a test of community. Would people nurture this project like they would nurture these tomato plants? Because this was a community-owned co-op, right? It didn't belong to me or a board of directors. It was a cooperative-owned business that belonged to the members in the community. In order for our work to truly be authentic, we need to be ourselves. I was in a visioning session once when a woman slid me a piece of paper, and on it said, "You could get funded for some of this community work," with a website scrolled underneath. So I went to that website later that night and read in big bold letters, "Selecting leaders with creative solutions to tough community problems." And I immediately clicked away. A leader, I thought? That wasn't me. Growing up, a young girl in North Dakota, a leader was some guy in a suit. That wasn't me. But as I thought about the hundreds of hours that had already been poured into this project, I went back to that website the next day and applied for the 2-year fellowship. I got a letter about a week later saying they were going to fly me to Minneapolis for a 4-hour interview. 4 hours. It's crazy. but I accepted because we must say yes to those things that scare us the most. So there I was in a hotel room in downtown St. Paul, leadership books spread across the bed because I was freaking out, right, nervous, I gotta read up on leadership. But I realized that nothing in any of those books would prepare me for what I already had inside me, right? Sometimes leadership is just showing up and doing the work. In that moment, I turned on the radio to relax a little bit, and David Bowie's Just Dance came on, right? Like, he was speaking to me at that moment. So I pushed those leadership books aside and I danced. I chose to dance in that moment and not cram like a nerd for some test that didn't even exist, because I recognized it was already within me. David Bowie, as you know, just died last month, and he was always marching to the beat of his own drum. He was called so many things, but one thing he never was sorry, right? He was never apologetic for being himself, and neither was I. So I went into that interview the next day and was completely myself. I chose to be me instead of somebody who I thought they might want me to be. To me, DIY community building means being grounded enough in who you are and what you care about so that your ideas can take flight. It's not about having all of the answers, but finding those who can help you along the way. And it's not waiting for a perfect set of circumstances to act. It's about rolling up our sleeves and getting messy. Will you fail? Maybe. You might fall flat on your face, but what if you don't? What if you surprise yourself and you experience a tremendous success? That success, that is the ammo for the next successful do-it-yourself project. So let's work towards creating the kind of communities that we want to live in and be proud of. Let's say yes to those things that scare us a little bit. So today I'd like to leave you the way I leave each one of my children's yoga classes. You are enough. Everything you need is inside of you. You are a bright light, and the bright light in me bows to the bright light in you. Namaste. Thank you.
Any takeaways from that?
Well, it sort of seems to me that the assumption was that a lot of people think they have to overstudy and don't think that they're enough to get into doing what they want to do, and are surprised and impressed by this concept of leadership when it comes along. And I guess that's how some people are, but other people have a different approach to it, and I think this is one person's point of view, right? To me, the word leadership and the idea that somebody might believe in you is not really the be-all and end-all of making a better world. To me, that's maybe the beginning for some people. But when I was growing up, kids were mean to me. No one thought I'd be a leader of any sort. So I sort of bristle when I hear people say, oh, I was so accepted as a leader, these people, leader this, leader that. It kind of makes me mad. It's just from my perspective, or at least a little annoyed. Maybe not super enraged, but annoyed.
And I think that's a really good perspective, because when we have these words on the board, right? So many communities, I find, they end up being co-opted, right? So what ends up happening is that we go and we join a group and we say, oh, this is going to be great, fantastic, woohoo, let's go, change the world or make our lives better. And then suddenly you see direction changes. And then the next thing you know, it's not a community. You find out sponsored by means that they actually own the intellectual property for everything that you've been doing. And then the next thing you know, they're just constantly trying to sell you something. And then it's like, well, what the heck was I just doing, right? So often, the big buzzword these days, leadership. We're going to teach you to be leaders. We're going to teach you to be entrepreneurs. Can you tell me of any true entrepreneur out there who was taught to be an entrepreneur? Probably not.
Self-taught.
Yeah, that's the school of hard knocks,
And
right?
the point isn't to be an entrepreneur, it's to make the world a better place, because that's what you're about. Being an entrepreneur is like what other people will say about you, and it sounds ego-fueled, it sounds narcissistic. I don't think it's helpful, because they're above everyone else. I don't like that.
Regardless of your internalization of RIT, I've always, right, and that's yours, okay, is I've always seen PAR-IT as a successful organization. That's how I view it. I don't know what your viewpoint is, and you don't need to share that,
Well, it's not
okay?
dead, so.
Yeah, and it's not dead.
As long as something's not.
But it sure took a heck of a long time to get to a point, as you specifically stated, where you learned, where you said, I learned some tricks along the way, you know? And that's what it takes. That's an entrepreneur, right? So, and I know Mark's intention to help the world be a better place. I'm really glad you came out, Mark. Yeah. Really good to see you.
No, we do not have a civic question.
Yeah.
That's our last episode.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care.
Oh, no, that one's someone else's. Okay.
Take care, Sarah. See you guys again. Yeah. Any other takeaways from that before we move to our next one?
Being yourself.
Being yourself, your authentic, your authentic self. Your authentic self, right? You're cheating because you have the training, right? The heart, right? You're centered, right? You know, that's where we come from. And it gets that bristle up, right? Like as soon as you're coming from the heart, you get that bristle in the neck. It's almost like an instinct, right at the back. It's, so many of us are in the red-black game. How do we negotiate that best game, right? Are we really worried about the other person who is also at the negotiating table, who actually was sitting there wearing a suit and tie, perhaps even gold cufflinks, but you didn't see the tatters on his shirt, right? And he's going home having lost the negotiation to no food on the table for the kids, right? The empathy. When we're talking about community, you look out there, where's the community? Well, we can find it. It does exist. But with so many other obstacles and challenges along the way, which are often trained, co-opted, enforced, institutionalized, we can't be our authentic self because we can't trust what the other person is going to do to us the moment we turn our back. Like I said, I'm pleased. Like I get that you guys probably figured out what I was hoping, what my intentions were with the red-black game, you know. But then again, I'm going to pretend you had no idea and you simply chose black. And for that, again, I appreciate it. This is so much the tip of the iceberg, and I'm totally about experiential learning. So I want to do some more around community. I want to do some more around abundance thinking and behaviors and activities, and around experiences and relationships, and a lot of the keystone words. So we'll see how it plays out. Right now, we're doing one event a month. I believe that Kevin has one. The next one, well, I'll let him tell, because if it doesn't change or what have you. I'm going to just make sure that everybody is back. I know Lisa's not.
Well, that's one thing that was because of my training. Okay. The way I've grown into it is, for me, I look at it as it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war. And a lot of my training now, especially too when I'm learning stuff, is focusing on self-defense. Okay. And not the Hollywood crap that you see. Okay. Stuff where my jiu-jitsu instructor is 5'7", 135-pound woman, and she has no problem putting me on my ass. Okay. And one of my goals is get more women involved seriously in this self-defense. There are so many predators out there now that will take advantage of any little situation, and I don't think any woman should be in that situation ever.
What is your dojo like? What is your rules around your dojo? Would you be able and willing to do or find a location to do a workshop?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
Okay, then you and Kevin can have a conversation about that. That would be fantastic. For
little example is my sister's a nurse.
Right.
She is a nurse out in Portugal Prairie. Lot of native population there. Guy was strapped to a chair. Okay, hands were still free.
Oh, this is the, I think I heard about this one.
And he lunged at her and grabbed her by the throat. And actually had his hands around her throat. The only thing that saved her life was the fact that she could stand up and move backwards. Okay. After that, she came to me and said, I need you to train me in self-defense. And I actually have the video of her the first time going through training with me. And there's quite a few things where she nearly broke my arm, she nearly broke my shoulder, she put me on my ass very easily. And it's not stuff that takes a lot of strength. It doesn't take a lot of time to learn. It's just the repetitions of doing it over and over again. And
one of the things that I find, you get this big war out there in the world about the defensive arts and the assertive arts, right? A lot of the assertive arts, they are take your enemy down now and disable him, right? Whereas the jiu-jitsu, the aikido, the karate, the judo, right? They're defensive arts, and what they are it's all about flowing with, right? And being respectful of the enemy as you take it to the ground and control, right? Yeah, right. And so, I mean, to me, that's a huge respect to anybody who can do that, right? There is a time and a place where you have to disable way more than you would ever have wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? You know that through your other training.
Yeah.
Right? And that is what it is. And that's a responsibility, right? You have that warrior way in you.
Yeah.
You know what it means at a deeper level than many people think. It's not just walking around with a gun, right? It's about being as respectful for where you're at and the context of where you're at.
And knowing the fact that, short of someone coming at me with a gun, that if a situation arises, I can peacefully, but also assertively defend myself to the point.
Strength.
Yeah. Where Master Silvio Bering is 66 years old, 5'6".
And he can still own you.
Yes. And there was a situation where we were going through a demonstration and the guy asked him, what would I do in this situation? Or what would you do in this situation? And Master Bering's just like this, okay? He grabs me, pop the arm and run. That's it. That's what he said he would do if I attacked him. And I outweigh him probably about 130 pounds. So that's a situation where a jiu-jitsu master is saying, this is a situation.
If necessary.
Yep.
You do what you have to do.
Yep.
But you understand the consequences and the responsibility to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to carry on. Our last one is, like I say, 20 minutes.
Yes.
I know it's getting close to probably when most people are kind of like going, I've had enough and I want to go home.
It's hard.
You can feel free to go home, or we'll have some more conversations after this, but
Something like that. That you need
here we
rules
go.
for it. So it's finding a place where you
Ted,
can
actually, how many years we have on
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here. When Todd first called and said the theme was community, I started looking for the ways that community is used. They're used a lot of different ways. Online community, business community, white community, black community, tech community. I even crowdsourced this question to my little cadre of social media followers, and I got all kinds of responses where people felt community. Festivals, football games, funerals, churches. And of course, it might not surprise you that if you look at this, it doesn't really have much of a meaning. It doesn't really tell us what we should be doing if we're trying to build a community. When I think about community, I think about Martin Luther King Jr. And I think about the notion that he put forward of a beloved community. He said, our goal is to create a beloved community, and this will require a qualitative change in our souls and a quantitative change in our lives. You see, the community that King envisioned is all-inclusive. Everybody's a part of it. It can't be exclusionary if it's beloved. Second, if it includes everyone, the differences of its members have to actually be embraced, the beloved part of the community. And then King talked a lot about, when he talked about beloved community, the fact that we all had to work for justice. And not only the justice of ourselves, but we had to work for the justice of every member of the beloved community. Now that is a pretty tall task, but I think it's a necessary one. And King thought it was a necessary one because what he said was that in an interconnected world, the only way we would develop the empathy required to actually solve our problems across our differences was by building the beloved community. So that's the challenge. How do we build the beloved community? Well, what if building the beloved community actually meant us taking one phrase and applying it to ourselves and to our actions? A phrase we've all heard many times. Love thy neighbor. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Love thy neighbor? You don't know my neighbor. Or like my wife and I, our walls were so thin we knew our neighbor far too well. But I don't want us to think about a specific person when we think about love our neighbor. I think we want to look at the root of the word. So if we take this notion of neighbor, instead of thinking about the people who live near us, I want us to turn it around and think about the people who we live near. That we actually start to be a neighbor by living near someone else's home. So in other words, how do you love someone's home base? Well, you can visit their home base, you can visit their community, and I'm sure many of us have. If I went to your home, I'm sure I'd see travel photos, and I'd see mementos, maybe artwork from other places, maybe other foods that you consume at home. But those visits are only visits. They are not the deep kind of engagement that we need when we think about beloved community, because if we're going to take this notion seriously, we have to confront a very tough truth. We cannot consume our way to community. One click, one more friend, one more trip is not actually going to build the beloved community. Instead, we need an engagement, an ongoing engagement with other communities and on their home turfs. There was a visit that I made when I was in college. Imagine a Sunday, sticky Sunday in September. I'm on the MARTA bus going down to Old Ebenezer Baptist Church, King's home church on Auburn Avenue. And I go into the church. It was still in the original sanctuary then, and it was a sight. The original pulpit where King preached, the robes of the choir, the long pews, the women wearing their Sunday hats that you always see in an African American church. And I sat down, and the service started, and we opened up our hymnal to the first song of the day, and I was shocked to discover that the same song that was first that day on Ebenezer Baptist docket was a song that we used to sing in my all-white country church in rural Arkansas. The second song, same one. Third song, same one. I knew all the songs. Now, I didn't sing them as well or as fast as Ebenezer Baptist, but I knew them. And so I jumped right in and I sang them, and this caused a bit of a stir among my seatmates left and right, who I did not know, both African-American folks. They were curious why this 18-year-old kid knew all of these spirituals, so we started talking about it. We started talking about church. We started talking about family. We started talking about home. I went back the next Sunday, and then I went back again. And those visits turned into an engagement, which then turned into an academic pursuit, that then turned into a professional pursuit. And for me, a lifetime of understanding and studying and engaging Southern African American history and communities. That's more than a visit. That's actually being a neighbor. It's not only that we build community by being the neighbor, but I would argue that being a neighbor is the ultimate expression of love. And the reason is because if we truly love our neighbor, that connection can transform people, and it can actually reconcile the fiercest of enemies. If you look at the history of the American Civil Rights Movement, all the leaders at some point said something along the following lines. We weren't just fighting for African American freedom, We were trying to liberate the oppressors from their mindset. And we were trying to liberate America from the plight of segregation. And no one embodied this more than someone that I've gotten to know, Reverend C.T. Vivian. Reverend C.T. Vivian is a true American hero. He was one of the people who sat in Nashville. He was drug out of restaurants, spit upon. He was one of the Freedom Riders, where he was beaten in Alabama and Mississippi. He was on the bridge in Selma on Bloody Sunday. This is a picture of C.T. praying for Sheriff Jim Clark, who was the feared and some would say murderous sheriff of Selma. I asked Reverend Vivian one day, I said, what were you thinking when you walked up every day and prayed for Sheriff Clark? And he said, I'd pray in the morning, then I'd go to Sheriff Clark, and he would yell at me. And the next day I'd pray, and then I'd go, and he'd arrest me. And one day he even broke his hand across my jaw when he punched me. And the next day I prayed again because I truly believed that the next day was the day we were going to be reconciled, and that he was going to see the evil of his ways. That is stunning. And it is what we see in so many different contexts. Whether you look at Gandhi and the way he thought about the British, you look at Mandela and Tutu and the way they thought about the Afrikaners, they believed that they weren't just freeing themselves, but they were building a whole new society, and they were going to reconcile with their neighbors who they were living near. And they were right. Each of those societies were changed because of the practice of loving thy neighbor. Now, these people have risen to the world of almost being saintly. And so it begs the question, how do we actually build our own capacity to be a neighbor, to practice this notion of loving our neighbors? Well, I believe that actually it is a combination of a mindset, the notion of beloved community, the notion of loving thy neighbor, living near their home base, and a certain skill set, that there actually are a few attributes that you can develop over time. And I'd like to just take a minute to kind of run through them. First one of these, and probably most important, is a true respect for otherness. If you're going to actually venture out and visit someone's home base and be the only person who is different who's there, you have to actually truly respect the otherness. I've done a lot of cross-community work, and I've often been the only other in the room, the only white person, the only male, the only southerner, the only whatever. And I used to, when I first started this, I used to try to fit in. So, maybe I'd dress a certain way, or maybe I'd change my accent a little bit, or maybe I'd try to find an artist that I thought somebody would like, and I would make these false connections. But that was the ultimate disrespect of the people I was visiting. I had to maintain my authenticity to show the actual respect of the other. And that's the basis that we have to enter communities. We have to maintain ourselves so that we actually can, when we ask a question, we can actually be asking it in truth. The second is, as we venture out, we don't have the ability to listen in the regular way. Maybe we speak the language, but we don't know the shorthand. We don't know the cultural markers. We don't know the landscape. And so we have to develop the ability to listen with our hearts. A friend of mine who's a social worker tells a story that among grief counselors, it's well known that grief is often expressed in one's native tongue. No matter how long they've lived in another country, whatever they first grew up with is the tongue and the language that they express true grief with. And the best grief counselors don't ask them to translate. They simply listen emotionally. They listen with their hearts in order to see what that person is feeling and see what they need. We have to cultivate the same sense. We have to listen with our hearts so that we can actually engage people who are very different from us and situations that are very different from us. The third is we have to have authenticity but flexibility of behavior. I lived in India for a while, and one of my projects, I was a consultant, I had a team, and it was all Indians, and the client was all Indians. And we had a kickoff lunch to start the project. It was a nice buffet spread of Indian food. There was the food, there were the plates, there were the napkins, there were the peppers, there were the spices, there was the bread. There was no silverware. So I sort of paused a minute, looked around the room to see how this was happening, and I noticed that people were setting up their plate a certain way. They were using the bread to basically dip the food and eat with their hands. So I did the same thing. I set my plate up the same way. I went and sat down. I started eating with my hands. Didn't say anything, no drama, nothing. 6 months later, one of the team members from the client came up to me. He said, you know, we were very worried about you when this project started. I said, oh really, why? He said, because we didn't think you were going to be able to connect with us, being an American and everybody else on the team being Indian. And he said, something happened that changed our mind. I said, what was it? He said, the first day you ate with your hands and you didn't say anything about it. You didn't make a big deal out of it. That ability to take a little bit of information and apply it in real time, to have a little bit of flexibility of behavior, can build enormous connection with someone else, especially when you're new to a community. Another is that you have to have a tolerance for ambiguity. Now, rounded to the nearest 1,000, how many times do you think that I've been asked, what is a white guy doing running the Center for Civil and Human Rights? It's in the tens of thousands now. And when I first started with the job, a lot of times I would react a bit defensively. I'd say, well, where's this person coming from? But very quickly I noticed that 99% of the time that question was actually asked from the very least curiosity, and most often it was a positive. So I would simply answer it, and then it would open a conversation. Someone would say, here's my connection to the topic, here's my family story, here's what I think you should be doing. And it became a positive exchange. If we're open to the ambiguity that exists when we first enter another community, it will often open up a very intimate conversation quickly. But if we're defensive, if we shut it down, if we try to make it about us, we'll miss that opportunity. The final one that we have to cultivate is one that's very hard to do, and that's overcoming the fear of accidental offense. Now let me just try to do my best and say I absolve you of all guilt of accidental offense starting today. Because if you're going to venture out, if you're going to actually practice being a neighbor to different communities, you're going to accidentally offend. My favorite story comes from my own family. My wife's family is originally from India. My family is originally from Oklahoma. And before we were married, my father and I visited my fiancé then's parents' house without my fiancé. We arrived, we had pleasantries, we drank tea, and then my father and I went to take our bags upstairs where we were going to sleep. My father grabbed his bag, because he likes to show that he's still pretty spry as an older guy, and carried it up the stairs, and I grabbed mine and carried it up the stairs. This caused a very fluxant phone call from my mother-in-law-to-be to my fiancé. And she said, what is Doug doing disrespecting his father? And my wife said, what do you mean? And she said, he didn't carry his father's bag up the stairs. Doesn't he know that that's what we do? Well, this opened up a very interesting and ultimately an amazing conversation about the differences in elders, respect, culture across our burgeoning family. Sometimes we have to venture out. We will accidentally offend, but if we're open to it, we will make the connections and we will overcome that very quickly. You know, when I think about this notion of a neighbor, something happened very early on that makes this whole topic extremely personal to me. I said earlier that I was from a rural town in Arkansas. It was 1,200 people when I grew up there. It's now a thriving metropolis of 2,000 people. I mean, it's just grown exponentially. And when I grew up there, we used to have a joke that there were two minority families in town, the two Catholic families. Because there was no racial, ethnic, religious diversity really of any kind in my little town in Arkansas. And so in one ways it was an idyllic community. But in another way it was not the beloved community because it wasn't all inclusive. It didn't allow everybody to be a part of it. So that's where I was from. And being from there, I also was a huge fan of Arkansas college football, as almost anyone is there, the Roaring Razorbacks. And when my brother went to college there, he was older than I was, he befriended one of the football cheerleaders, a guy who lived on his hall, and he called up, he said, if you come to the football game, Arthur will be able to get you on the football field. Well, this was the greatest news that I heard in my 5 years of life, that I would be able to get onto the football field. So we go to the University of Arkansas, and I meet Arthur, and he takes me on the football field, and he is an incredible guy. He is kind. He is one of those people who connects with kids. He explains to me everything about football. This is a picture of that meeting. I'm on the left. Arthur was my hero. He was the greatest guy I'd ever met. So I convinced my parents and my brother to bring Arthur home to my little town to visit us. Well, the return trip didn't go as well. When Arthur moved around the community, things were said, people were a bit hostile. It was not a great reception. And Arthur's response to it was the same he had had to me. He was kind, he was loving, he was accepting, he was empathetic. He visited our home base in a way that was giving, even though people didn't want him to be there. And that moment set me on a path to do my very best to try to build that empathy within myself for various communities. It inspired me then, it continues to inspire me now. And it's something that I think is epitomized by a quote from someone who, of course, knows a lot about being a neighbor, Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers said, "Love isn't a state of perfect caring. It's an active noun like struggle. To love someone is to strive to accept that person exactly the way he or she is right here and now." That's exactly what Arthur did. When he visited our home, he accepted everyone he encountered, good, bad, or indifferent, exactly who they were right then and right there. This notion of love thy neighbor is something that, for me, transformed me very early in life. It's something that, as I have studied the American Civil Rights Movement and other social movements, it shows itself to have a transformative power on society and is the only way that enemies can be reconciled. And as we look across our community, as we look across our world, the problems strike me as being communal in nature. Whether it be the environment or economics and poverty or freedom and human rights, they're all communal. And I believe today that the only way we can build the capacity individually and collectively to address our communal problems is by pursuing the beloved community, by loving our neighbors. I hope that we'll get started today. Thanks.
All right, there you go. That's what I like about BANG, is that we are a community, regardless of who we are, regardless of our opinions, and whether others believe in us or not, or not believe in us, but believe the same things that we do. There will be commonalities, and we will ebb and flow within our own community as to what interests us at any given time, and what we focus on, and how we apply our skills, knowledge, experience, what have you. That what I'd like to see more of, and I have been seeing more of, is that this community thrives. Because I believe that we do have a commonality, more in common. All right, Mr. K, come on up.
All right, so far, thank you everyone for coming to this workshop. We're not just finishing yet. I just haven't spoke yet today. And so the event doesn't go until about 4:30, and we have to be gone by 4:45. So while we usually do leave some room for networking, there's a couple points I want to go over. The number one is, Kevin, how do we make this blue stay less blue?
By taking the button and pressing the off, the red button on the left, to your left, there. Yep.
All right, there we go. Okay, so community. With a community and all of us, in a sense, getting to work together, to know each other on a personal level. A lot of events I've gone to, and they're powerful events. At the end, you feel amazing. And then you go home and you're like, I'm never going to see any of those guys again, sort of thing. And until the next event, and then you talk to them. But being part of a community is not necessarily coming together to say you're part of a community, but to actually do it. And what does doing it actually look like? And it's meeting people on a personal level after the events. It's getting to know each other as well as their networks, their family, and understanding how we can meet each other's needs and work together. All of us, I can guarantee, can find at least one, if not two people in this room right now that either one of their services we can do some sort of work together, or find something that they might not have said that they can accomplish, but they actually can, because, like for myself, I never see myself as copywriter. Being part of this group with Troy and Kevin R, they've been saying that based on how you're talking to people and stuff, that would be a natural fit for you. And they're wanting me to do more of that, but it's that thing where by getting to know people, you learn more skills than they're letting on and learn more about them. Like certain people, they have their public perception of what they do, and then they have what they really do. Some people do some stuff during the evenings or during the weekends, their own little personal hobbies. Hobbies are a huge part. Most people don't talk about them unless you really know them, what those hobbies are. So by really getting to know each other after the workshops, that's how we can really get to know each other. And instead of coming out and meeting new people, now you're coming out and having a meeting spot for a huge group of friends who want to do a whole bunch of change for the better. So one thing I wanted to talk about is how to get together and to meet more individuals in a community. One of the huge things is just all of us, if people know any events happening out in the community in the next month, so the month of May, to kind of let everyone else know what's happening around them, whether that's your son has a soccer game or your wife has some sort of charity event or something like that. 3 events I know of. One, the 3rd and Bird, I believe it is. It has an event, a vendor's market, and that is at Hudson's Bay on Portage. That's going to be happening next few weeks. Another one's the wine tasting at the RBC Convention Center. That seems like a really exciting event. And then the last Saturday of May, we're going to have another one of these BANG events too. Does anyone else have any other community events they're thinking that's happening in May or things that they want to invite people down to?
Actually, Fitness on the Go is going to be at Fitness Experience, kind of doing a booth, meet the trainers, get some advice on training if you want to start. Also too, like get some expert advice on equipment if you want to actually start training at home.
Do you know when that is?
May 5th, actually, at 10 o'clock in the morning till about 3 or 4, I think.
Okay, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So.
Does anyone else have anything?
Well, there's a couple of concerts. I don't know if people would be interested in that. Because I'm part of a choir, and then there's a whole bunch of people that I've met in other choirs. So there's one at, on the 12th of May. I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, could you post that or let
No, yeah, there's 3 or 4 of them.
Do you know where it
I
is?
can't go to all of them, but they're very, very good. One of them is an a cappella.
Nice.
Are they outdoors or in sorry, no?
No, they're in churches. because
Okay,
they
oh
have,
yeah, of course, yeah.
Different churches or always the same one?
Different churches around town.
Okay.
Different,
So,
there's a,
coming in a neighborhood near you?
oh yeah, there's one that's a Assiniboine chorus. That's interesting because they're a cappella because they're Sweet Avalons. It's like women that do barbershop.
Okay.
And yeah, it's real interesting. I went to one of their meetings, and their voices are the instruments, so they have to be placed properly. It's really interesting how
Within
they place
like
things.
within the actual group as well too.
Yeah, it's
So that
just, it's
they're-
really neat
yeah,
the
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
they're placed and the way they line people up and figure out what the progression of the voices are. It's awesome. I don't want to do it because it's really hard work, but it's really, really incredible. And yeah, that's a good one. And another one is a gospel one. It's I think at the Park Theater, and then the other one is French, but they don't care. No, they sing English songs as well.
Oh, I love you, Monique.
Thank you, I need that.
Thank you. Preet, is there anything at the Human Rights Museum?
Event? No.
Okay, I heard something interesting. Is Wednesdays free?
The first Wednesday of every month is free, and the other Wednesday it's $5. But
Yeah.
that's after 5 p.m.
I seen that on Facebook, and I'm like, now I got a reason to attend. Well, I've been wanting to before for the longest time, but my wife's always working, so it's like, gotta find a good time. But I just see that, like, the cheapness in me, I'm going.
I already spend hours doing those.
Of course. Toronto had Ripley's Aquarium. It's this huge aquarium, and it took me 3 hours to go through, photo and video everything. And then
Kind of like IKEA with me.
And then yeah, pretty much. And then I was looking for my friend who was in there. So then I walked around and it was about 3 minutes to walk through the entire thing. I'm just like, I stared at these fish as longer than I thought. Or it felt much bigger, but then when you walk through the second time. Okay, Lisa, do you have another one of your art things coming up?
No, not presently. I'm busy with other things, but CBC Radio also has a choir, a choir at 3:45 on Friday. You go to the CBC building. I haven't been yet, but they do a different song every time, and they practice for like an hour and 45 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And they have a leader, and they do awesome stuff. Anyone can go, any age, any.
A spontaneous choir.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is there any other events anyone can think of?
There's a really cool, I've gone to a few times, the Pirate Festival. The Twin
Okay.
Swords. Twin Swords, it's cool. It's usually, I can't remember if it's the last weekend in May or the first weekend in June. And it's always, they got great shows and people come totally decked out. It's really, it's fun. It's neat.
Where is it?
It used to be at Coronation Park, but now it's on, there's an empty lot on Sargent. And it's just, I went last year when it was on Sargent, and it was really neat because you see all these people decked out in their pirate costumes.
Speaking of which, so every 2 years, so this is the year that it's happening, there's a medieval festival happening at Cooks Creek.
Oh.
It is real hard to get tickets. You may not be able to get tickets, but they do it all.
Jousting.
The jousting and that, medieval, yeah, showboating, yes, every 2 years. So if anybody's interested in that, just check it out. You can just do a search for Cooks Creek Medieval Festival, and I like the pirate.
I know the pirates. It is.
I believe the last week of May also has the Teddy Bears picnic too. That's coming up as well. Anyone else?
I'll post some stuff.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Everyone who did save their events, do post it in our community group so everyone else can see what's happening in their community. Myself, I've been trying to post a lot of content, just trying to push stuff up there. But instead of me just talking to everyone, by getting everyone to join in and talk amongst the community and work together online, that's how we build this thing. And when new people join, and here's the thing, we might have a great community now, we might be happy with it, but for new people to join, what they first do is they research everything about it. And it's funny, whether or not it's reality, they'll watch the videos, or at least the first 30 seconds of each video. They'll look on our Facebook group and see the engagements. They'll go on the events and see how many people are going, how many people are interested, how many are invited. And so by creating that engagement, that community, giving them stuff to interact with, that really motivates them to become part of it. Because there's a lot of events, let's say on meetup.com, where you have one or two hosts and they're just pushing the same content over and over, and so people become numb to that. But when they see an actual thriving community, that's what they want to become part of.
Just for clarity too, the three of us, Troy, Kevin, and myself, we really do believe in it, first of all, in an inclusive community. We also believe in a transparent community. Now you might say, but Kevin R., how come he was so secretive about the posting for the event today? You know, that's Kevin just wanting to be Kevin, to say, well, you don't have to. We're going to tell you a little bit of what is going to go on, but not necessarily everything, so that it can be a surprise and maybe more enjoyable. And you know, and I have heard that some people aren't showing up because they don't know what it's about. But then there's a lot of people who find out what it's about and say, oh, that's not for me. So I think that what you'll see in this video is a lot of how the events will be going on. There will be engagement, there will be whatevers, right? There will be talk about money and talk about businesses and business networking, but community building and blah, blah, blah. So it's everything. It's a mishmash of it. This is the St. Norbert market here of people.
Freelancers.
Right? You know, and so that's, so if there's anything that you want to know, please ask. we're happy to. Anybody who wants to get involved more than, we welcome that, please. Right? That part why we want to know your skills is so everybody else could say, hey, can you help me figure out how to bake this cheesecake because mine keeps flopping? Or versus, hey, we need some help at the time, whatever, right? Help, the community is about helping each other, so.
And then going on about the description of what Kevin R. was saying was that, so every single time we hold a workshop, whatever that means. A workshop is we get someone from within our community, which would be any one of you, to come up and talk about something you're passionate about for an hour and try and educate people. So whether that's creating digital marketing, Lisa did our actual very first workshop in this style with art, and she's been to every single event yet. Art mindfulness, it was really great. Watercolors. It was awesome. And so by hearing what all of you have to offer, we definitely do want to get you guys up here and create something where it's give and receive sort of thing. We're all working together for a common goal. We keep getting tons of requests from people who see our workshop style and they want to do a lesson, but then we're like, come on out, and they're like, no, I'm busy, but I'll host the next one. And it's like seriously, dozens of people a week ask me that, and I'm like, well, we want you to
say it to the
come
camera.
one.
Say it to the camera.
We at least want you to come to one workshop.
This isn't the same. Watching it is not the same. You have to be here. You missed some stuff.
Definitely. And so by actually coming down, by being a member of the community, you have to come and listen to someone else before you get the luxury of now presenting to everyone else. Otherwise, people come here, they come once, they host something, and then they leave. They need to be part of the community. So what we're doing is also another part of the workshop, why we're keeping the workshops a generic workshop, is that we've had some people like someone who is in finance who come and talk to everyone and do a workshop on finance. But then people online say, oh, this is finance, this is not for me, and they don't come. So you look at the entire event based on the workshop. When the entire event is, you come here at the beginning, you network, you meet new people. We do some networking games, we have a good time like that red and black game. And then we do a workshop just for an hour of the 4-hour session and to learn some new stuff from our members. And then towards the end, we talk about community events and we get to know each other. And then towards the end, the people who are here get to vote about the direction of where this group is headed, which brings us to the next part. Well, before the next part, sorry, we're going to go into that voting section first, but once again, if any of you guys do want to host a workshop, we're looking to select someone for the last week of May. We got some people interested, but we told them you have to come in order to host that workshop. And so we want the people here now to be able to present their ideas, and whether it's, for me, it's probably just a private message, and that's good. It could be a type of thing where we create a poll in the community and everyone posts ideas and people vote based on what they want to hear and learn about. And so there's so much ways we can go about it. But we definitely want to hear all your workshop ideas to see where we can go from there and book some in advance. So then to the voting part, did anyone, or let's start off, what did people like or dislike about today's workshop? Does anyone have any opinions they want to vocalize?
You know what?
That guy who used to shave his hair soft.
Kevin, see the shade.
I would recognize you if you did that.
It's been winter for a while.
You know, I got the impression it was like a drop-in. I don't know, maybe it was just written, or I didn't understand the way the post was written. That's why I came late, because I thought to drop in.
And most are. A lot of workshops are just come in and network. And a lot of people said, well, we'll come in at 3:30 or 4:30. And sure, not everyone it can fit their work stop. But at the same time, it's once people come here first, then they'd be able to understand the momentum so they know for the future events. At the same time, there's also videos. We have a video of all of our past workshops on both Facebook and YouTube where people can watch those as well.
Yeah, I know, but I was kind of sorry because I wanted to, that sounded like an interesting thing, that black and white.
The game.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Well, and I'll tell you this, and I would like some feedback as well too, here and later. Feel free to let me know how this worked. Like some of you may have heard me say, this is just a tip of the iceberg of what I am hoping to present over the course of however long I have material to do this kind of stuff. And I absolutely am prepared to do the red-black game again. Hopefully it will be with, well, and here's the thing, re-auditing the red-black game doesn't make it any difference. Right? No, because you could still be sitting in a group going, but this is what I want. And you're still gonna have the different people sitting across from you with a different day that they had today. And the cornflakes or the special K that you didn't have in the morning, right? So, I gotcha.
I had cookies for breakfast.
But yeah, so feedback is great, excellent, and we'll be doing some more of this stuff.
Like, personally, I think this is like amazing what you got going on, your ideas, what you're bringing to the table here, exposure, you know what I mean? Like collective learning, like it's a really great like environment, and this I think can grow very large, and I think it's like probably going to be a very like large initiative that you're starting right now.
Yeah.
This is just literally the tip, like you said, and the tip is very exciting at this point. I feel.
Now, with you feeling that motivated and positive about this, then it would be very influential to hear, well, I loved everything except this one small part. What would that part be if there was anything you didn't like about it?
I legit loved everything.
Except the cookies you didn't eat.
But that's a personal
I know.
choice, right? Like, you can't force me to eat cookies. But like,
Good try though.
you drink Kool-Aid too.
The jujitsu grappler over there right beside you.
Yeah, but you know what's great? You still, even though there was cookies and you personally don't eat them, you still came, and I'm assuming it's more for the learning experience.
He wanted to come for the cookies, and he asked me, and I that's what he led with.
Yeah.
And like, I literally had no idea what was happening. Like, no idea. But I'm just so open to like being around anything. And I feel so good in my physical body right now. So like, 'cause I was feeling very ill before.
Yeah.
So I just want to get out and see people and be in the community.
Energize, that's
And
the goal.
connect with people. Yeah, and like everybody, we're all very diverse, but yet at the same time, but at the same time, we unify together in a diverse way with similar goals. We all have similar goals, right? So we all have something different to bring to the table, which is what's great about this group.
Have you ever baked cookies for yourself in a way you felt was healthy?
No.
I
don't really
If
bake
so, I want to
cookies.
see your recipe.
Yeah, well,
it's a learning experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, you know what, I could try and make some for next time.
Here's a question.
For sure.
What do you consider a treat, a dessert?
What do I consider?
Yes.
Like a small piece of chocolate, like small.
Oh.
Like very bite-sized.
Okay, so everybody, go find out how to be a chocolatier.
Yeah, no, I don't have much of a sweet tooth, so.
And that's fine, but you may find something else a treat.
I would. Connecting with people is a very treat, like it's a very big treat for
Aw.
me. So this is enough for me. I can sustain on this together.
I know that there was about 2 to 3 people who messaged me. I messaged like 300 people personally telling them to come. And 2 or 3 of them said, I'm not coming to this event solely because I'm allergic to like gluten or these things. And I said, that's perfect, that's why we need you here. We need you to send us your recipes, help create mindfulness, educate people on other people. It's that whole thing, like people.
There's gluten-free brownies here.
There, Lisa.
Thank you for the thank you.
And like same
They were
with people
good.
who, let's say, have a wheelchair handicap or something.
Yeah.
We need you to come here to help educate us based on that as part of a community. And a lot of us as business owners, there's a lot of business owners where accessibility just doesn't pass their mind, which is why the disability community right now is booming in business owners. Lots of successful business owners are educating as well as innovating and inventing new and unique gadgets for people with disabilities.
And what's even worse, from my perspective, is that organizations and buildings out there say that they're accessible. They're not!
Accessible, but they're broken down elevator.
Get there then!
Yeah.
Man,
I would, yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
The way they built the construction too.
Yeah, I was a big time like advocate for people with physical and intellectual disabilities for a very long time, and I come from a place where in the future I might have those types of disabilities. So I'm very much attuned to like what's going on around me and observant. So I'm a huge advocate.
Speaking of observing, before you guys run off yet, I want to focus all of the eyeballs on the 2 people who came in. Tell us your name and tell us about yourself. What do you do?
I'm Stacy. I'm a student at U of M right now.
And what do you do on your off time of being a student?
I'm just about done my job at the movie theater in St. Paul, and I work with a neighbor as well. So 2 dogs.
Sometimes with your dad.
Yeah, sometimes with my dad.
And I'm Darcy Barrington. I own Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning. Had some customers during the day and stuff that I had to take care of. No, a couple people here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had no idea what's going on here. But I knew there was cookies. So I really don't like them, so I had your share too.
Did anyone else have any feedback that they want to share? Anything they would change with today's event?
Just an agenda would be nice. I think that would solve some problems. Just to have an agenda of like, you know, even if you're just to say game.
Cool stuff happening here.
Yeah.
Networking. More cool stuff.
Yeah.
I had an agenda, I just didn't share it.
Yeah, I think that would allow people to know when they want to show up.
When to show
Or for what portions.
Okay.
Or
If
all.
that's what they can do, yes, because Dawn, for example, had to leave early
Yeah.
or whatever,
Right.
you know, and some, we just can't fit everybody in, but at least they can cover parts of it or whatever.
And also maybe like instead of like having a whole 3.5 hour event, maybe we can have shorter breaks, but like, you know, chunk it down to like 2 hours.
Right.
Because, for example, I had something to do, but I also wanted to, I didn't want to leave before we finish it.
Right.
So maybe.
We appreciate that, and like, here's the thing,
We
we,
did take an extra hour.
yeah, we, because it was happening every week, we were finding some people couldn't come during the week, right? And so then we figured we'd do it in the weekend, but we know not everybody can come on the weekend either, you know? Maybe they're, especially coming into the summer, they're all out at the lake or whatever, right? So I myself would like to see both. I'd like to see a weekend event and a weekday event, at least once per. But here's the thing.
We need volunteers.
There's Kevin, there's Troy. And we're all living busy lives. Troy? Golden Ball. Yeah. And yeah, we're, you know, we're doing our best to accommodate as we can, you know, but more help the better, right?
The way a community works is it's not,
Oh,
"Hi, we're the
tell us
leaders,
how."
we are going to make you guys do it in this way." The way a community works is, you guys plan the next one, but whatever comes of it, comes of it. And so we need you guys to participate and give your feedback and give your voice. And so just simply by saying the word, "I'm interested in helping the next event," even if it's just hearing what you guys are saying, giving my random word of advice every now and then. We
That
have
may
a
not even be
Facebook
a
group.
joke, you know, fairness, you guys, like, any one of you out there in internet land, like, seriously, you wanna do your own? Like, you think that we should be doing something? Set it up, tell us, we'll help you, you know, I mean, part of being a leader is being a servant, right? We serve, leaders
The real
serve.
leader is that second person that comes in.
And so, like, if you got something and you say, "Hey, I got time to put into this," you know, tell us, and that's what the community is for. Tell everybody. Like, one of the things that I was gonna throw in here too is intention. This is an intentional community, right? And I want to know your intentions. What would you like to see? Is it a tomato plants in front of City Hall? Is it, some guerrilla gardening? Is it, let's go help, a North End group or whatever? It's
how we can actually go into a community and make a
Yeah.
difference as a
Is
group
there an
instead of an
intention
individual.
that you guys want individually or collectively, and for those of us who have the opportunity and motivation or intention to support our fellow community members, absolutely.
Go together
Let
and
us know.
support the local choirs or the local
Yeah.
markets or what have you.
And each other. And each other. That's key, right? They say blood is thicker than water. Well, pretty much every community that I know of, there's as much of a blood connection as anything else. We are a family. And hey, that's pretty cool. So.
Message me if you want to have a voice. Simple as that. Other than that, there is still time for networking. Technically, the library doesn't close till 5. I'm gonna start packing up just because every single time we book this library, we've gone 15 minutes past closing, and they hate us now. But other than that, you can still hang out here and network and talk, or there's quiet spaces everywhere. What I really recommend is try and get at least 2 other people you have not met before today, and find a time in each other's schedule and next month to sit down and have those one-on-one conversations and really get to know them.
Invite people to our videos. 2.
That's it, just a sec.
Oh, sorry.
So sit down one-on-one, really get to know each other. You don't have to utilize their service. I might not need digital design directly. I might not need art and mindfulness directly. But by knowing each other and really understanding each other, maybe down the road there's someone I know who really could use Lisa's art and mindfulness. Maybe there's someone I know that could really use that digital marketing and personal training, all that stuff. And so by sitting down, it might not help you, but that's not the community. It's how we can help others and connect.